Hey, this is Warren Redlick, just part of a great conversation on Clubhouse with a bunch of other Tesla people talking about the big question right here. Is FSD worth $15,000? You're buying a Tesla and you have the option to add FSD, and currently it's $12,000. On September 5th, it's going to go up to $15,000. And there's a lot of people who are big Tesla fans, big Tesla supporters, FSD beta testers, who think that price is too high.
It's too damn high.
That it's not a good price because a lot of people won't pay it, or it's not a good price because it's going to drive some people out of the market and they want more people to get FSD. So I want to talk about why I think FSD is clearly worth more than $15,000. I paid $10,000 for it on my Model X Plaid. I paid an undefined amount, but probably $8,000 for it on my Model 3. I ordered a Cybertruck at a $7,000 price for FSD and an $8,000 price for FSD. But if I were buying a new Tesla today, I would pay $15,000 for FSD. And I want to explain why, and I want to explain why other people think I might be wrong. Are you ready? Let's go. So my approach to this question is, in what way are you going to use this car? If the car is going to be used as a personal vehicle, then it's different than if it's going to be used as a robotaxi. If you're using it as a personal vehicle, then the value very clearly is safety. You will be safer in the future when FSD beta becomes FSD, becomes better than human, safer than human. You will be safer in your car with FSD driving it than with you driving it. I believe that I currently am safer running FSD, the current version of FSD, whether it's FSD beta in my Model 3 or FSD, whatever you want to call it, auto steer on my Model X. I don't have FSD beta on the Model X yet. I personally feel that letting the car drive and me supervising it is safer than me driving on my own. That's an opinion. You can form your own opinion about that, but I believe that there's a safety value. And then the question is, what is safety worth? Well, some people buy inexpensive cars that are far less safe than safer cars. Some people will pay for safety. That's, Volvo's reputation, right? Is that you're paying for safety. So there's a value in that. And then there's a second value, which is when we get to genuine full self driving, that you can sit in the back seat, that you can send the car out there without a person in it, then the car drives for you. And it might simply be that you're sitting in the driver's seat, not paying attention, and you only pay attention when the car prompts you, which should be very rare. Or maybe it's you have the car drive your kid to school, and then the car drives home after it drops the kid off at school. Maybe you're able to send the car out for some runs to pick up your grandparents, whatever it is, to make certain trips, to go grab your friend. There's some uses that you'd be able to use it for without it being a full-on robotaxi in a robotaxi fleet. So I can't answer that. This is not how I value the car. My valuation of the car is based on the robotaxi thinking. That's why I think FSD is worth more than $15,000. But if you can imagine, the problem is that for a lot of people, it's not worth $15,000 to have the car drive itself if it's not a robotaxi. So if that's your view, that it's limited to personal use, then wealthy people will pay for that privilege. But a lot of other people just can't afford to pay $15,000 for that. So I don't think that that's the intent of the pricing at $15,000. And I will say that the vast majority of people that I was speaking with disagree with me on what I'm about to say, which is I think it's priced based on its future value as a robotaxi. So let's talk about that. In use as a robotaxi, this is the critical question about robotaxi, is will my 2018 Model 3 or a current 2022 Model 3, will my Model X, will it ever be robotaxi capable? Now, one of the arguments that my friends were making is it doesn't have all the hardware it needs. For example, my Model X has auto opening and auto closing doors. So if the passenger doesn't close the door in a Model 3, then the Model 3 just sits there and it can't operate. And their contention is that a robotaxi needs to have self-closing doors. I don't agree with that. I think I don't want to say it's dumb, but it doesn't really make sense. And if you think about it, it's really simple. Any of these problems are solvable by notifying the rider in the app, hey, you left the door open, or whatever the issue is. And we know that Tesla can do this because when you leave your car at a supercharger, past the time that it's finished supercharging, you get a notice. You got 5 minutes. After that, we're charging you $1 a minute. So this is built in. They've already done this. If some rider of the Robotaxi walks away leaving the door open, they get a prompt on their phone, hey, shut the door, dumbass. If they don't shut the door, they're going to get charged $1 a minute or whatever the pricing is going to be. And yeah, at some point, somebody from Tesla or the Robotaxi owner has to come out and shut the door and let the car start running again. But the Robotaxi rider who left it open is going to pay. And they'll learn very quickly not to do that. Right? That's what's going to happen. People will learn, just like people learn very quickly not to leave their car at a supercharger, they'll figure it out. So I don't think that's a legitimate question. The other legitimate question about hardware is the FSD hardware good enough? And let's talk about that next. So another group of my friends, I would say particularly Chuck Cook and Lisa, known as Lisa Tesla Truth, they believe that the hardware is inadequate. In particular, they believe that the car needs side-facing cameras near the front of the car so that there are situations where, you like Chuck's unprotected left turn, there's cars coming from the left and there's obstructions or occlusions and you can't see those cars. And that because the side-facing camera is a little bit behind the driver's head, it just can't see well enough. Now, I think this is a minor problem, and I think the cars can figure this out, and there's a lot of ways around it. The other theory is that the cameras aren't high enough resolution. They're 1280 by 720, that future cameras will be higher resolution, or that the hardware isn't fast enough, the computer processor isn't fast enough to process all the information. I don't think any of these are a problem. I think that the cars will be better in the future with higher definition cameras and faster processing, but I believe the current hardware suite is good enough. I think the team is pretty clear about that. I don't think they've stressed out the hardware limitations. I think people underestimate the value of a 1280 by 720 camera. And I think they underestimate the value of the software at being able to interpret just 2 or 3 pixels moving. If they're up to 36 frames a second, which is where I think they're heading, the motion from 2 or 3 pixels off in the distance may be enough once the AI gets going, once the machine learning figures it out. That covers the technical, is it capable of that? Let's talk about the value in Robotaxi use, which is where I think the real driver is. This is the big one, right? If you have a Tesla Model 3, let's say, that is capable of Robotaxi operation, it will probably generate more than $30,000 a year in profit to you as the owner. I honestly think it's going to make more than $30,000 a year in profit for the owner. It might make 50 or 60. You've got to share some of that with Tesla. So I think you walk home with at least $30,000 a year in profit. And, if I got FSD 2 years from now, my car would probably have another 500,000 miles in it. Yeah, I might have to replace the battery pack at some point. Probably not. But my car would get, let's say 5 years of use at $30,000 a year in profits. I make $150,000 on the car at that point. Now I paid maybe $8,000 for it. So if you buy a Tesla Model 3 today, let's say, and you pay $15,000 for it, I should say in September 5th or after, you pay $15,000 for it, and then 2 years later they deliver a Robotaxi fleet, and your car operates for 8 years, making you $30,000 a year in profit, you're making $240,000 in profit. Wouldn't you pay $100,000 for that? I would. Any business owner would pay $100,000 for that kind of profit. Maybe it's $80,000, whatever, but this is the point. You're paying $15,000 today, not because it's worth $15,000 today. You're paying $15,000 today because of the prospect that it might be worth $100,000 in 2 or 3 years when the Robotaxi network goes live. That's where the real value is. That's why it's worth $15,000. And if you don't see it, you don't see it. So, you're going to generate all this revenue. It's going to drive 100,000 miles in a year. It's going to get, let's say, 60,000 miles paid at $1 a mile at $60,000. It costs you $15,000 for that 100,000 miles. So you really made $45,000 in profit. So you add that up. So then you give a share to Tesla and you end up with, $30,000 in gross profit over 10 years, 8 years, whatever. You just make a lot of money on the car. That's the value. That's why it's worth it. And so then you have to come to this question, what's the probability that Tesla delivers a Robotaxi network that my Model 3 can drive in the next 2 to 5 years, let's say? So let's talk about that. Now, some of my friends basically have the attitude there's zero probability that the Model 3 will be usable in a Robotaxi network anytime in the next 10 years. If that's your view, then it's probably not worth $15,000 and you shouldn't buy it. My view is there's a substantial probability, 50%, that within the next 2 or 3 years, there will be a Robotaxi network operating somewhere and Model 3s will be able to drive in it. So call it a 50% probability that 3 years from now, You're going to have your Model 3 is going to be able to run for the next 7 years or 8 years, making you $30,000 a year. So there's a 50% probability you're going to make $240,000 on this car. That's $120,000 in expected value. Would you pay $15,000 for that? I would. I think that's a no-brainer. And then the question is, how low does the probability have to be? If the probability is, let's say, 20%, right, that you're going to get 8 years of $240,000 out of it. Even at 20%, 1/5 of $240,000 is a lot more than $15,000. That's about $50,000, right? So your expected value, even at a 20% chance, is greater. Even at a 10% chance, it's $24,000. Right? So even if there's only a 10% chance that Tesla delivers a Robotaxi network such that your Model 3 that you just bought with full self-driving for $15,000 will be able to make you $240,000, even if it's only a 10% chance, the expected value of that is $24,000. I personally think the probability is closer to 50% that it happens within, say, 3 years. I think there's a good chance it happens next year. So a small chance. I mean, maybe it's a 10% chance, but I think the way things are going, we're going to hit safer than human by the end of this year, and then we're going to hit a lot safer than human soon. Dojo's going to come into gear, and all these other things are going to come into place, and it's going to get better and better and better. The last thing we got to talk about is resale value. The issue with resale value is if you buy the car, but you don't expect to keep it long enough to operate it as a Robotaxi, and then you're going to turn around and you're going to sell it. So I bought my Model X Plaid, and I do not expect to keep it long enough to run it as a Robotaxi. I'm going to keep it long enough to get my Cybertruck, and I'm going to sell it when Cybertruck comes. That's at least the current plan. And when Cybertruck, so I sell it, I expect to sell it to somebody, and I will wait to find a buyer who appreciates the value of FSD. I'm not going to be in a rush sale where I have to sell it fast and I just get the best I can get, or I trade it in and that's all. I will shop around and see who's willing to pay for it, and some people will be willing to pay the extra value of FSD. Now, will they be willing to pay $15,000 for FSD? Now, keep in mind, I paid $10,000 for it, right? This is the other thing. It's going up to $15,000 now. It's probably going up to $20,000 or $25,000 later. So if you decide you're a buyer who wants to get a Model X Plaid with FSD, and you can buy it from Tesla, but you got to wait 2 months, or you can buy it from Warren and you got it right away, and you get a little bit of a discount because Warren will sell you the FSD for $10,000 instead of $15,000. I think that there are buyers out there who will pay for that to get the car quicker, to know that it's in good shape. Now, so far the Teslas are increasing in value over time. So I think that, and I bought my car at a discount because I ordered it early, and the new car price is up substantially. So I expect to make money on it anyway. But there's two types of buyers for your car. One type of buyer for your car is just somebody who's looking to buy a car to drive around for themselves for personal use. But in a Robotaxi world, there's going to be fleet operators. And so the personal use person does not value the car based on the $30,000 a year in profit over the next 8 years, because they're not planning to put the car into that use. But there will be business owners, people who invest in franchises will say, wait a minute, I invest $15,000 today and I make $240,000 over 8 years. Yeah, I'll sign up for that. So those people are fleet owners, and they will outbid the personal buyers for the cars. That's my expectation that that's coming. I'm not saying it's here yet, but as we get closer and closer to a Robotaxi world, more and more business owners are going to see this potential value, and they'll snap it up before the price goes up. That's a prediction. Am I right? I don't know. You can decide I'm wrong, but I believe people will see that fleet owners will have the expectation this car is going to be worth that much, and they will bet on that. They will, and maybe not. I mean, I know people who put in orders for like 100 Cybertrucks because they're expecting that to have this value. They're expecting to run fleets of Robotaxis with Cybertruck. They paid $7,000 or $8,000 for FSD on their Cybertrucks so that they'd be able to run fleets. There's plenty of people who see that value, and they're going to take that risk. A friend of mine just ordered a semi, figuring he's going to be able to make a business of running the semi as a tractor trailer. Some people see it, some people don't. I can't make you see it if you don't want to see it. So that's my explanation for why FSD is worth $15,000 or more than $15,000. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Do you think it's worth $15,000? Would you pay $15,000 for it? Do you think businesses would pay $15,000 for it? That's a big question. Otherwise, Please support this channel on the Locals platform, on Patreon, or as a YouTube channel member. Please check out the t-shirts. We got to be less wrong. People think I'm wrong about this, but I think I'm less wrong. We'll see what we see. Check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. Please check out my other videos, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.